Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I want to talk about something that's really interesting about section 88 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Um, in my opinion, and from what I can tell, it's basically the biggest second coming section of the Doctrine and Covenants. There's DNC 45, there's a bunch of different sections, but maybe the two biggest I would say are 45 and 88, and we refer to section 88 all the time. So I got this email from Michelle Nyer, Joseph Smith on December 25th and 27th of 1832. And, well, this kind of took me down a bit of a rabbit hole, which is really interesting, and I want to share it with you. So, if you've been following the channel for a little while now, or at least the last couple of weeks, we've been talking a lot about Christmas, winter solstice, and why that might be a time that Christ would choose to come again for symbolic reasons. As far as we know, nothing happened on either of those days, which it's not to say that something didn't happen. We may not know about it till later. I mean, who knows? It could be any number of things. But this year has been it's been a very interesting year. A lot of things have happened. I plan to do a probably, well, I don't know if I'm going to do it as a live stream, or I don't know if I'm going to do it just like do a video and schedule it for New Year's Eve. But I want to do a review of the year. As you may or may not know, I have this timeline right here. It's not a timeline predicting the future. It's a timeline that talks about what has actually happened. Things that I consider to be significant events that have to do with the second coming, or may have to do with the second coming. And there's been a lot of things that have lined up between the Christian and Jewish calendars this year, as well as things happening in the church. Okay. We've had a lot of heavenly signs, okay, like signs in the heavens, like in space and in the sky this year. In fact, I've started adding here in the purple. Purple is the color I chose for things that have happened in the heavens, signs in the heavens. And there's been a lot this year, and they've been significant, really significant. So anyway, um, if you didn't watch the videos, you may want to go back and see why Christmas this year seemed special, and maybe was special. So, okay, so Michelle Nyer, she sent me this. Hi, Jared. Reading this today, the dates of Joseph Smith's revelations really stood out. Smiley face, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. So that link takes us to teachings of Joseph Smith, right? It's part of that series, Teachings of Presidents of the Church. This one is Joseph Smith's, chapter 21, the Second Coming and the Millennium. I guess I'll read this. The chapter like subheading. We shall do well to discern the signs of the times as we pass along, that the day of the Lord may not overtake us as a thief in the night. Somebody had actually asked what's the purpose of watching for the signs recently in the comments, and this is the reason, so that it doesn't come to you as a surprise. Because what's about to happen whenever it takes place, things are going to change quite dramatically. Okay, everything from your body is going to change. You're going to have a translated body. The wicked are going to be removed off the earth. And that's probably, I hate to say this because it sounds so bad, but it's all of us. I guarantee you, all of us, without exception, have family members, friends, people that we love, care about, that are not living a celestial or a terrestrial law. They will not be moving forward into the millennium. So you may want to be thinking about that and be emotionally ready for that. You also want to be doing your best and make sure that you qualify for the different privileges and blessings that are associated with the second coming. It's possible that you would move into the second coming, but if you're not on the covenant path, if you're not living a celestial law and keeping your covenants, you're probably not going to be caught up to meet the Savior in the clouds when he comes, and maybe other things. We don't know everything that's going to happen. So there's many different reasons why you would want to have a feel for the second coming being close. It's to prepare you spiritually, uh, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, all these things. So, okay. Anyway, from the life of Joseph Smith in September 1832. Joseph and Emma Smith and their 16-month-old daughter, Julia, moved from the Johnson farm in Hiram, Ohio, back to Kirtland. Uh, there they moved into the general store owned by Newell K. Whitney, where they would live for more than a year. The Smith family lived on the second floor of the store and part of the first floor that was not used for business. Joseph and Emma's son, Joseph Smith III, was born while the family lived in this store. The prophet also received many revelations there. One such revelation came on Christmas Day in 1832. Now, this is interesting because we are now 190 years after this happened. 190 years. It's like a nice even number. I'm not saying that it's significant, it's just interesting, given everything that's happening this year. The prophet spent part of this day at home, deep in contemplation about the serious problems facing the nations of the world at the time. Quote, appearances of troubles among the nations became more visible this season than they had previously been since the church began her journey out of the wilderness. That's a reference to Revelation 12. The church fled into the wilderness, was taken to a place hidden so the dragon wouldn't eat the baby, and now it's coming out of the wilderness. Events in the United States were leading toward civil war, and outbreaks of deadly diseases were widespread throughout the world. While, quote unquote, praying earnestly on the subject, the prophet received the revelation now found in section 87 of the Doctrine and Covenants. The Lord revealed to Joseph that before the second coming, war would be poured out upon all the nations, and natural calamities would chasten the people. So, let's look at a couple things really quick. Section 87, the revelation and prophecy on war given through Joseph Smith, the prophet, at or near Kirtland, Ohio, December 25th, 1832. At this time, disputes in the United States over slavery and South Carolina's nullification of federal tariffs were prevalent. Joseph Smith's history states that appearances of troubles among the nations were becoming more visible to the prophet than they had previously been since the church began her journey out of the wilderness. I'm not going to read the section, but war is foretold between the northern states and the southern states. Great calamities will fall upon all the inhabitants of the earth. Now, you have to keep in mind, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you're not familiar with U.S. history, 1832, that's about 30 years before the American Civil War kicked off. The only date I know for sure is that it was happening during 1865. Let's see. American Civil War dates. Oh, okay, it ended in 65. So went from 1861 to 1865. Okay, so this is about 30 years before that time. This is one of the more incredible things, that's hard to ignore, that he prophesied that would happen. Of course, someone might say, well, he just figured it was going to happen, so whatever, he got lucky. But no, that's not what happened. He's a prophet, and he saw it. And I've put on my timeline here. Let's go back in time to the Civil War. Okay, I have it right here. Everything that's highlighted in red is a war. Okay. Columns D and E kind of like roughly show you the duration of the war. Column C is just when the war starts. Okay. So you have the American Civil War. Shortly after that, Paraguay War, 7 Weeks War, Franco-Prussian War, Russo-Turkish War, War of the Pacific, the Nitrate War, which went for a while. First Sino-Japanese War, Boxer Rebellion, Spanish-American War, da, 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 and you see that it just like all these wars. And then you get to World War One. Here's the Russian Civil War. World War One, the Great War, right? What was supposed to be the war to end all wars, in theory. World War Two, the worst war in history. Israeli War of Independence, Korean War, just war, war, war. War truly has been poured out upon all nations. Over here, Iran-Iraq War, Soviet-Afghan War. Okay, war, 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 war. Okay, and then here you have 9/11, which of course, here it is, September 11th attacks, which of course began the Afghanistan War, which is America's longest war. And then shortly after that, the Iraq War. So we had these twin wars going on. You had the Arab Spring revolutions. What, at least one of which, well, I can't. Well, we have the Syrian civil war that's still going on. That's right here in column G. We're still dealing with that from the Arab Spring. Russia invaded Crimea in 2014, and then, as everyone knows, this year the Ukraine war started, where Russia has decided to annex 4 more provinces or regions from Ukraine. And this conflict is still unresolved. So, okay, so there's that. Let's go back to the manual. Quote, with the sword and by bloodshed the inhabitants of the earth shall mourn, and with famine and plague and earthquake and the thunder of heaven and the fierce and vivid lightning also shall the inhabitants of the earth be made to feel the wrath and indignation and chastening hand of an almighty God until the consumption decreed hath made a full end of all nations. So see, this is interesting because if this Christmas and these days, because these revelations were on Christmas Day, the 27th, which is, for me, it's today. I'm recording this on the 27th, the 28th, and then I think January 3rd. It's interesting because we may be reaching that time shortly when the nations are going to be, the full end of nations is going to happen. Wherefore stand ye in holy places, and be not moved until the day of the Lord come, for behold, it cometh quickly, saith the Lord. 2 days later, on December 27th, that's today, or for you, yesterday, the prophet received another revelation that contained much information about the second coming. Yeah, that's kind of an understatement. On that day, a conference of high priests had gathered in the prophet's translating room, the room in the Whitney store where Joseph Smith did much of his work on the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible. So really quick, before we continue reading this, let's go ahead and read the heading for section 88. Revelation given through Joseph Smith the prophet at Kirtland, Ohio, December 27th and 28th, 1832, and January 3rd, 1833. The prophet designated it as the olive leaf, plucked from the tree of paradise, the Lord's message of peace to us. Now that's interesting right there. This gives this section kind of a special designation, right? And I feel like I was aware of this before, probably hailing all the way back to my seminary or maybe institute days in high school or college. But Anyway, I was reminded of it at the least. And anyway, we're going to look at that actually. Okay, the revelation was given after high priests at a conference prayed separately and vocally to the Lord to reveal His will unto us concerning the upbuilding of Zion. Faithful saints receive that comforter, which is the promise of eternal life. All things are controlled and governed by the light of Christ. The resurrection comes through the redemption. Obedience to celestial, terrestrial, or telestial laws prepares men for those respective kingdoms and glories. Those who will abide in sin remain filthy still. All kingdoms are governed by law. God has given a law unto all things. Man will comprehend, even God. The parable of the man sending his servants into the field and visiting them in turn. Draw near to the Lord, and ye will see his face. Sanctify yourselves and teach one another the doctrines of the kingdom. Every man who has been warned should warn his neighbor. See, and this is something that we can do by sharing the Book of Mormon. And this is something that we need to do. We all have that responsibility to share our testimonies, um, live righteously, be an example, but also do things like invite and share the Book of Mormon. And a lot of you have done really, really good with that. I'm working on it as well. It's going to take me some time to reach everybody that I need to. As of right now, we have 3,524 shares of the Book of Mormon. So it's moving along really well. I know that some of you have sent me emails, but I've, put them in a separate folder, and I'm gonna have to go through them and then add them, because sometimes you'll send me how many you share along with more information than I need to read and figure out if I'm going to do a video on it or not. So that takes me time. I would encourage you to click on the link in the description below for my tracker, and then check if your name is on here and make sure that I have your numbers correct, because if I have something off or if I haven't added you yet, then just let me know either in a comment or an email, and then I'll add you. If you've sent me messages on Facebook Messenger or Instagram, just know that those are the two worst methods to contact me, because that's just how it goes. So either wait for me to get to it, which may take forever, or feel free to update me another way. So anyway, right now we're shooting for 5,000, and now we're less than 1,500 away. And I'd love to see if we could get to, could get to 10,000 for sure. And as of right now, there's only a total of 284. I say 284 because the first column is being used as this right here, the titles of these columns. So 284. So that's very small compared to how many people watch my videos. So I know some of you don't want to put your name on here, and that's fine. I would still encourage you to do it. If nothing else, I'll put you down anonymously, just because by doing a tracker like this, I think it encourages others to share, because it's like we're doing a big project together, and so it's a motivator, you know what I mean? So anyway, I would encourage you to let me know, and I'll update you. Pause the video, do it right now, send one out. Go to your gospel library app, go to scriptures, and at the top there's a share button to share specifically the Book of Mormon. It'll let you send it by text or Facebook Messenger or however you want to do it, email. So do that. I would encourage you to do that. Okay, going back. Every man who has been warned should warn his neighbor. Signs, upheavals of the elements, and angels prepare the way for the second coming of the Lord. Angelic trumps call for the dead in their order. Angelic trumps proclaim the restoration of the gospel, the fall of Babylon, and the battle of the great God. Seek learning, establish a house of God, a temple, and clothe yourselves with the bond of charity. The order of the school of the prophets is set forth, including the ordinance of washing of feet. Okay, so that's what this is, but it talks a lot about the second coming, a lot. This is the only set that, okay, so aside from the book of Joshua in the book of Revelation, this is the only other place where you can find 7 trumpets. Okay, and I've done videos about this. Just do a search on my channel for trumpets. I've done several videos now about these 4. There's 4 sets of 7 trumpets. One in Joshua. The second set is in the book of Revelation. And then there are 2 sets of 7 trumpets here in D&C 88. So this is a really special um, section. It really is. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay. The minutes of the conference record, quote, Brother Joseph arose and said, to receive revelation and the blessings of heaven, it was necessary to have our minds on God and exercise faith and become of one heart and of one mind. Zion. Say, okay, so become Zion. Therefore, he recommended all present to pray separately and vocally to the Lord for him to reveal his will unto us concerning the upbuilding of Zion and for the benefit of the saints. End quote. Each high priest bowed down before the Lord and then spoke of his feeling and determination to keep the commandments of God. Shortly thereafter, the prophet began to receive the revelation from God that would later become section 88 of the Doctrine and Covenants. This revelation contains some of the scripture's most detailed prophecies about the coming of the Lord and the establishment of a 1,000-year period of peace. Through the prophet Joseph Smith, the Lord revealed many prophecies concerning the second coming, the millennium, and the turbulent time that will precede these events. This great outpouring of revelation is a testimony that Joseph Smith was truly a seer raised up by God. Okay, so we're going to end that right there. So, sorry. It mentions some specific verses right here, 86 to 116. Okay, so that's down here. So I want to just remind you again, the main reason why I'm doing this video is just because the dates that we receive these revelations. So 87 on Christmas Day, 2 days later, part of 88, and then the next day on the 28th, another part of 88, and then finally on the 3rd of January, it finished up. So I want to read this though, just as a reminder, just how incredible these things are and just when they were revealed. Abide ye in the liberty wherewith ye are made free. Entangle not yourselves in sin, but let your hands be clean until the Lord comes. For not many days hence the earth shall tremble and reel to and fro as a drunken man, and the sun shall hide his face and shall refuse to give light, and the moon shall be bathed in blood, and the stars shall become exceedingly angry, and shall cast themselves down as a fig that falleth off a fig tree. And after your testimony cometh wrath and indignation upon the people. By the way, this has already been declared as fulfilled. Okay. I'm not going to try and find it right now because but you can go to my tracker and this is on there. Okay. For after your testimony cometh the testimony of earthquakes that cause groanings in the midst of her, and men shall fall upon the ground and shall not be able to stand. And also cometh the cometh the testimony of the voice of thunderings, and the voice of lightnings, and the voice of tempests, and the voice of the waves of the sea, heaving themselves beyond their bounds. President Hinckley specifically talked about this one, verse 90. By the way, if you don't know where it is, go to my tracker. At the very bottom, you have the different tabs right here, and go to prophecy fulfillment. And this is where I have specific scriptures, and then it'll show you to the right who said the prophecy was fulfilled, the reference, and then you can actually read what they said about it. Okay. And so I have it organized by, here, I'm going to zoom out so you can see better. I have it organized by books. So red is Old Testament, orange is New Testament, uh, yellow is Book of Mormon, green is Doctrine and Covenants, and then blue is Pearl of Great Price. So you can come here, and this is an ongoing project. It's going to take me some time to have it all filled out. Okay. And all things shall be in commotion, and surely men's hearts shall fail them, for fear shall come upon all people. That's been fulfilled. And the angel shall fly through the midst of heaven, crying with a loud voice, sounding the trump of God, saying, prepare ye, O inhabitants of the earth, for the judgment of our God is come. Behold, and lo, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. And immediately there shall appear a great sign in heaven, and all people shall see it together. This is the sign of the Son of Man. You click on the footnote there. It takes you to the sign of the Son of Man, which President Nelson referenced this last General Conference. I think that's significant. And another angel shall sound his trump, saying, that great church, the mother of abominations, that made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, that persecuteth the saints of God, that shed their blood, who sitteth upon many waters and upon the islands of the sea. Behold, she is the tares of the earth. She is bound in bundles. Her bands are made strong. No man can loose them. Therefore she is ready to be burned. And he shall sound his trump both long and loud, and all nations shall hear it. I think we're getting really close to this, because I think that the end of the great and abominable church, the end of essentially the nations, I think that comes along and happens at the same time as Adam-on-Diamond, as Christ is crowned, as Christ assumes the kingdom of the earth. So again, I just did a video about Adam-on-Diamond and how it's very possible that that's already going on right now. It's probably not complete at this point, but it's like I feel like it's probably at the least in progress. And then and there shall be silence in heaven for the space of half an hour, and immediately after shall the curtain of heaven be unfolded, as a scroll is unfolded after it is rolled up, and the face of the Lord shall be unveiled. We've read about what silence in heaven means, and what we read is that it's a time when God is silent, when he allows evil to do its thing. Okay, yeah, sure. You do what you want. You do what you want. Okay. And it's very possible that when the temples were closed, when missionary work was essentially almost suspended in a way, when evil was having its time hindering the work of the kingdom, that very well could have been that time when God is like, okay, yeah, you make your move. You make your move with this pandemic, and you do your thing, and you do all this stuff. We'll shut down the temple. Missionaries will come back home. I don't know. I'm not going to say that that's the case, but it makes sense to me. So after that, okay, after it says immediately after shall the curtain of heaven be unfolded as a scroll is unfolded, after it is rolled up, and the face of the Lord shall be unveiled. And the saints that are upon the earth who are alive shall be quickened and be caught up to meet him. And they who have slept in their graves shall come forth, for their graves shall be opened, and they shall be caught up to meet him in the midst of the pillar of heaven. I've wondered about this too, about how the timing of the resurrection relates to Adam-on-Diamond, because I feel like in order for people from past dispensations to report, the ones that have held keys, that they would probably be in a resurrected state when they do that. But I don't know. I can't find anything that nails that down. That's why I wonder if the very last part would happen in the midst of the pillar of heaven, in the cloud. That's like when things are finalized, but I don't know. They are Christ, the first fruits, they who shall descend with him first, and they who are on the earth in their graves, who are first caught up to meet him, and all this by the voice of the sounding of the trump of the angel of God. And after this another angel shall sound, which is the second trump, and then cometh the redemption of those who are Christ at his coming. who have received their part in that prison which is prepared for them, that they might receive the gospel and be judged according to men in the flesh. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of this. This is the last set of trumpets. Um, anyway, you can read that. So I'm going to move on. There's a few more things. This is from Church News. Prophet extends olive leaf to contentious in Missouri. It says, during 1832, a spirit of contention developed between some of the brethren in Missouri and some living in Ohio. Okay, so this is where this name comes from, the olive leaf. Some of the brethren in Missouri challenged the prophet's right to preside over them. Well, nice, okay. On January 14th, 1833, Joseph Smith wrote to W. W. Phelps in Missouri enclosing a copy of Section 88, which became known as the olive leaf. Its concepts would bear testimony of the prophet's inspiration, and it would help the saints overcome their differences and again enjoy a spirit of peace. Joseph Smith wrote, quote, I send you the olive leaf, which we have plucked from the tree of paradise, the Lord's message of peace to us. For though our brethren in Zion indulge in feelings toward us, which are not according to the requirements of the new covenant, yet we have the satisfaction of knowing that the Lord approves of us and has accepted us and established his name in Kirtland for the salvation of the nations. For the Lord will have a place whence his word will go forth in these last days in purity. End quote. The brethren in Kirtland pray for you unceasingly. Oh, he was quoting. Okay, sorry. Forget that. Okay. The brethren in Kirtland pray for you unceasingly, for knowing the terrors of the Lord. They greatly fear you. You will see the Lord commanded us in Kirtland to build a house of God and establish a school for the prophets. This is the word of the Lord to us, and we must, yea, the Lord helping us, we will obey. As on conditions of our obedience, he has promised us great things, yea, even a visit from the heavens to honor us with his own presence. The prophet added a postscript to the letter, quote, I am not in the habit of crying peace when there is no peace, and knowing the threatening judgments of God, I say, woe unto them who are at ease in Zion. Fearfulness will speedily lay hold of the hypocrite. I did not suspect you had lost the commandments, but though from your letters you had neglected to read them, otherwise you would not have written as you did. Okay. Um, I'm not going to read that. I'll put it in the description below, though. And I'm probably not going to read this either, actually. Sorry, I was kind of rushing and I was just kind of collecting things, but I think we've made the point. Now, this is something interesting here. Okay, now this is a little bit of a tangent. This is from Church News. Joseph Smith prophesied of today's hastening of the work. This is from the 30th of December, 2014. And there's this part here where it says, then the Lord gave a prophecy which was quoted infrequently until President Thomas S. Monson announced that younger men and women could serve missions. D&C 8873 reads, behold, I will hasten my work in its time. That's it. That's the verse. Notice that the Lord says, my work, not the work, as some people are wont to say. Okay, whatever. So what I did is first I updated the scripture tracker where we're looking at the number of times a scripture has been cited in general conference. Okay, this is in chronological order. So here you can see 2013. That's the year that President Monson would have cited it, and it was cited twice. And then it's been cited even more since that time. In fact, every year of President Nelson's presidency except for 2020. So you have a grouping right here, and then you have 2013, Okay, but then you go back in time and you don't see that again until 1993. And then you go back, there's like a little grouping right here in the early 90s. And then somewhat of a grouping in the 70s. And so, yeah, there's just not really a whole lot of it. And there's long periods of time that go by in between each grouping. But you have this one in 2013 by President Monson. Now, if we switch over to the phrase tracker, now instead of specific scriptures, these are specific words and phrases that have shown up in General Conference talks. This is what we find in 2013. Okay, so the word hastening all of a sudden comes to life in 2013. Again, you have to go back to 1993 to see that again. And you can see under hastening, it just doesn't come up very often at all. Like, not very often at all. And then it really comes to life starting in 2013 and then on to the present, except for it wasn't used this year. And then the same thing happens with the word hasten right here. That also comes to life in 2013. Hasten is a little bit more frequent, actually a lot more frequent than hastening, but you can see it dies off, right here pretty much. The 90s, the 2000s, the early 2010s are quiet, and then it comes to life at the same time in 2013. Another thing you may not know is the phrase covenant path is usually associated with President Nelson, and you can see since he became prophet, I mean, it's just dark red. But it actually comes to life, so to speak, in 2013. And you go back in time, there's a couple other times, 2007, 2009. But other than that, it doesn't come up at all. But it starts in earnest in 2013. Okay, with the exception of 2007 and 2009. Okay, your covenants, which is similar to covenant path, that also has an uptick in 2013. So does now is the time. You can see here 7. Hopefully you can see these darker colors right here. Okay, so 2013, some of these things really get going. Last days. You would think that last days would be really heavy over the last few years, but no. The last time, the heaviest it's been within recent memory was 2013 with 9 times. And then before that, you have to go back to 1981. Okay. And then, of course, the 70s. That's always a heavy time for a second coming talk. All right. So, last days, invite you. That really picks up starting in 2013. Before that, not so much. You have lighter colors. And I don't know why, but Jerusalem suddenly picks up for both 2013, 14, and 15. And then it kind of dies down. In fact, this year it's only been 2 times, which is a little odd. But so this is interesting, okay? Because all of this may have to do with that section in the Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, verse 73. Hastening. Covenant path, your covenants, now's the time, last days, invite you, and then Jerusalem for some reason. And then I've shown you this before. I'm going to go over here. Let's look at rising generation in this column K. This is really interesting because you can see right here, it's mentioned every year, right? But if you go back in time, if you go before 2006, it's just kind of sporadic, right? There's a lot of white space, only onesies and twosies, really, maybe a couple threes. But then in 2006 all the way until present, it is just a solid block, just a consecutive block of red. So I feel like uh, the way to interpret that is this rising generation, I guess, starting in 2006, is probably a significant generation. And it makes sense because I've done videos already. In fact, I have a separate playlist about the rising generation. There's always people that are like, yeah, they've always told us that we're the generation, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not true. And I know that for a fact because I've researched it. Yes, you can go back a ways, and they'll say certain things, but I've pulled out all the specific times that they spoke to specific generations. President Nelson, for example, in this video right here, True Millennials, he explicitly told the millennial generation that they are the people of the millennium. Okay. Ezra Taft Benson has also made very explicit statements, and that would have been more like the late baby boomers and also Generation X. And then there's been a lot of generational talk about this new generation, the Lord's Youth Battalion, for example. And we just read a story from someone who said that I think it was the Logan Temple where they want to train young adults specifically because uh, they said that they're going to be the ones that build the New Jerusalem. So I would encourage you, if you think that, it's always been said, no, that's not true at all. It's not true at all. I've done numerous videos about this, and it's pretty clear that right now we really seem to be in like a final phase. President Nelson has said that we're in the bottom of the ninth inning. He said that in his recorded address for FSY this year. You can look that up too. Just go to my channel, and then there's like there's a, here, I'll show you. If you ever if I ever reference something, but then I don't put a link for it in the description below because I'm just saying it in passing, just click on the glass right here, okay, the search icon, and then just search whatever it is. Okay, I've almost done 1,000 videos now, so you can seriously find anything that you want to find, like any topic. I'm pretty sure I've done videos about it. So, this rising generation and what happened in 2013 with the lowering of the age for missionaries, and then everything that's been going on since that time, especially this year when we had a big call up, a big mobilization of missionaries. Yeah, things are happening. Things are definitely happening. And by the way, I should show you this. I shouldn't have closed out of this. I'm going to go to the Scripture Citation Index. I'm going to go down to Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, verse 73. Here it is. And look at this. President Nelson, he has cited this probably the most out of anybody, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he has cited it 4 times. No one else has done that. No one else has done it. He cited it in both general conferences of 2021, and then he did it in 2013. Oh, well, yeah, look at that. He did it in 2013. That was that year. Of all people, when President Monson announces the lowering of the age, he's the one, well, he's one of the ones that cites it. Let's read what he said. Okay. This wave of truth and righteousness is wondrous. It is not man-made. It comes from the Lord who said, I will hasten my work in its time. This wave is empowered by a divine announcement made 193 years ago. It consisted of only 7 words. This is my beloved son, hear him. Interesting. Um, our eternal Father and our eternal Father and Jesus Christ made multiple appearances to the prophet Joseph Smith under the direction. What's the? I'm assuming that he's talking about like the gospel wave, essentially. Okay, dear brothers and sisters, I add my voice to that of President Thomas S. Monson and others in praising those who have responded to a prophet's call for more worthy missionaries. Now, an unprecedented wave of enthusiasm for missionary work is sweeping the entire earth. More of you young men and women will catch this wave as you strive to be worthy of mission calls. You see this as a wave of truth and righteousness. You see your opportunity to be on the crest of that wave. Your parents, teachers, and others catch the wave as you prepare our rising generation, there's that phrase, to be worthy of missionary service. Yeah. So, I mean, there it is. There it is. It's fascinating. And, a wave that you undoubtedly that would come from the reference of flooding the earth, right? That's something that's recently been said, and that's what started this Book of Mormon challenge. I've titled it the Flood the Earth campaign, which was actually recommended by Natalie Stout. She was like, "Oh, there should be a hashtag for this," and she recommended Flood the Earth. Chelsea Newman, she's the one that pointed out Elder Rasband's talk. Rasband this day, where he says flood. Oh, it's in the heading. It says our living prophet is doing his part to flood the earth with the Book of Mormon. We must follow his lead. So it's amazing. This is something that we can actively engage in, you guys, and many of you are. I am too, and the potential is quite astounding. Honestly, let's just do a little simple math. Oh, oops. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my last time I updated it. Let's just see what the average is. So we have last time I updated this portion of the spreadsheet, 3,505 copies of the Book of Mormon, and the average would be 284. So that's about 12 per person. Okay, so imagine if just 1,000 people, just 1,000 of you, and I know that there's going to be at least 1,000 people that watch this video. Listen to me. Listen to me. I know that there's at least 1,000 of you. If you can send just 10, what's that going to equal? Well, let's times it by 1,000. That's going to be 1,200 or 12,341 copies of the Book of Mormon. If all of you just did 10. Now imagine if you did 100. Okay, that would take us to 123,000. That is a huge number. That is a huge number. Please do it. I mean, you don't have to. I'm not your dad, but just do it. We could really make a difference and help prepare for the second coming. Hopefully, there's still time left. Um, so, anyway, back to the original idea. I'm just going to close this up now. It's interesting that these sections were revealed on these dates. I was talking to my wife yesterday. I think it was yesterday we were talking about, well, nothing seemed to have happened on the 25th, and that well may be the case. You know, whenever something does happen, we don't know exactly how it'll happen. For all we know, it's a process, and that does seem to be the case most of the time rather than instantaneous events. Have you ever been at some event or something where you're standing in line and it's a long line? Maybe you're waiting to see a show or get on a ride or something like that. And it's just a really, really long line. And then finally, after waiting, uh, they start letting people in, but you don't feel the effect of it right away because you're not at the front of the line. If you're at the front of the line, then yes, you would feel it right away. But usually it takes time for people to get moving, and then it finally reaches back to where you are, and then you start moving maybe a couple minutes after they open the gate or whatever. So, say for example that the resurrection or the translation process is not an immediate thing, just as an example. It could be that the very first ones started on Christmas and we're not going to know about it until after the fact, you know, or whether it's that or some other thing, who knows? And that could be true of any day of the year whenever something happens. So just always keep that in mind. But I do want to point out that it's interesting that we're at exactly 190 years since these sections of the Doctrine and Covenants were revealed. Very interesting dates. You know, maybe um, our most rich scriptures that have to do with the second coming revealed at this time of the year. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Make sure to share the Book of Mormon and let me know about it, and then I'll update you on the tracker, and I'll talk to you guys later.